Hello and welcome to Kids Get Acquainted with the Internet, a Girl Meets World video podcast. I'm Dan.
I'm Keith, and today we're talking about a very special episode, Girl Meets a Christmas Maya, Season 3, Episode 18.
Yep.
Wow, I remembered.
And we're almost at the end, guys. I mean, we still don't really know what World Meets Girl is, but aside from that, we basically have like a 2-part finale left. Assuming there's no Season 4, which who knows.
So at most 3 episodes till implosion.
Until implosion point. I will say this, and this is a little bit off track, but people care. The fact that the cast is now very actively like fighting for it makes me think that there is still a chance.
Yeah, there's a sliver of hope.
Yeah.
But what is that chance? Is that chance of a renewal on Disney, or is that a change to something else, whatever that might be?
I don't know. I mean, everything that they're saying is...
What do you feel, Dan?
What I feel is that Disney is the most probable thing. Also, your thing has made a noise. Yep. Disney's probably the most probable thing because it takes the least amount of effort. It just gets... All it requires is for Disney to say, okay, fine, you can have one last year, which I think is very possible. Everything else is much more complicated and less, happens less often.
Don't throw a tablet, kids.
Yeah, but if you do, be Keith.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but this is sort of off topic. What did we think of A Christmas Maya?
Confusing, as is the new norm.
I will say this. I liked it a lot better than I was expecting. I think that there is a significant amount of quality in this episode, and that to me it sort of harkens back to things like... It's in that zone of things like Great Lady of New York, or even things...
It's definitely in that zone.
Yeah, in that zone of... I even think it kind of even reminds me of things like New Year's, or just episodes where I'm like, there's good things in here. There's also weird things, and I think mostly I like it, but if we drill down into it, there's significant worry points.
We could pollute the whole water table. It would be terrible.
So, where do we want to start? We want to talk about just Maya, or...
Let's just start with the plot.
Okay. The main A plot, which is that Maya, he wants...
It's sad.
Well, what else is new? And... he wants to stay with Riley because she's worried that if Sean sees her and her mom celebrating Christmas, that she'll ruin it and that her great happiness will fall apart. What did you think?
Well, the discussion, if I remember correctly, that we had as we were watching it was, there are 2 Mayas, and they only exist on the arc that lies within one episode. There's begin of episode, There's begin. There's beginning of episode Maya, and there's end of episode Maya. There are arcs that happen, but whenever Maya learns a lesson, end of episode Maya never comes back at the beginning of another episode. It just gets washed clean. And so, even though, and you can explain some Twitter discussions you've had, there is some legitimacy for Maya feeling this way, as a character, we need to stop seeing the same things over and over again as the first catalyst.
Well, the other thing is, I wish there was... Because I feel like you could, in some ways, say the same thing about Sean, right? That he keeps having the same thing over and over. But the thing with Sean is that I feel like there's repeated catalysts, and things continue to be bad to reaffirm his negative outlook and things like that.
And the biggest thing about Sean is... It's much more dynamic. He doesn't just get nirvana and then get better and then get better. He just there's a lot of give and take with Sean.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. So yes, in regular life, if you have a bad thing happen to you, it doesn't just go away after you have one nice lesson. Yes, you might learn it, but then do you really learn it?
Right.
And I understand that, and that's real life, and that's tough. And on TV shows, I do think TV shows should try to simulate real life to some degree. And there were things like where I loved in Forgiveness, where the message was, we don't expect you to forgive your father in one episode. It's going to take time.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah. But there needs to be some sort of progress.
Yeah. That being said, though, the end of that episode, as we talked about, end of episode Maya, was, there was a certain realization that was, I'm not the problem.
Yeah, I'm
not
the reason.
And it's okay for that to come up once in a while, but should that be the catalyst for a whole episode?
Yeah,
I'm not sure about that. Especially because it's not even necessarily in conjunction with something else. The thing that it's in conjunction with is a good thing, is, Sean is in my life now. So instead of this being, yet again, I'm to blame, and it becomes this sort of self-destructive or self-sabotaging is the word I'm looking for kind of thing, which is okay, but
there's a lot of repetition.
You need to have something else pushing that more than just I'm gonna screw up a good thing.
Well, I mean, because there's very little things like if Sean and here's like no matter what it's complicated because Ryder doesn't want to be in that many episodes. But if you could have Ryder and you had an episode start where Sean and Katie have a small little argument, which people have in relationships,
right? And she's like, "Oh, I'm afraid."
Yeah, and that freaks her out. That's a great catalyst. That makes sense. Even though she should have learned this, I understand why she'd revert back to her old ways. This is just the same exact thing as it was at the beginning of I Do. Was it I Do? Yeah, I Do. Where at the beginning of the episode, she's like, it's going to fall apart, it's going to fall apart, and then, it's not going to fall apart, everything's going to happen. And the thing is that this is a hard thing to talk about because I realize that real people are struggling with stuff like this. And I don't want
This is a believable problem. As a TV show, are the people who want to connect with this problem getting anything new the fourth time around?
Yeah, I mean, because one of the things I was talking with people on Twitter is like I'd still be loving to see her meeting her step siblings because that's something new, and I could see how Maya reacts to this new thing.
And it's interconnected, but fresh.
But so that's what I was gonna say though, as far as why it's tough is because to me, for a character. And I know why this could sound sort of mean to a real person, but for a character, it's hard for me to still sympathize with Maya, just because this character, it has been given almost everything she ever dreamed of now. And I'm not saying that what happened to her is no longer a bad thing because good things happened, but when the show is working so hard to make me think, she is like the most downtrodden person ever. Her problems are like the most real problems a person can have, and yet she has a mother who always cared about her. Yeah. Sean loves her and she loves Sean. It's not even like Sean loves her and she's like, I don't want this new father figure. She loves Sean.
Mean, Sean married her mom just for her.
and solving her financial worries. Yeah. She has a great best friend.
We don't know any one way or the other.
She has a great best friend. She's gonna get Josh in the long run. So like literally everything's coming up daisies for her, and I realize
her mom's a superstar
now. Exactly. Yeah, and so yes, I realize that the darkness that happened to her will never completely go away, and I get that.
And that's why she's a supervillain.
But it's not. I guess the reason that it's particularly frustrating and upsetting to me is because it's not Sean, and I realize that yes, there's always going to be a bias, but Sean continuously was struggling with new things, and that it's hard. We didn't ever see her father leave her. Yeah. All of that was off screen, and it's the main driving force.
Especially because it was off screen, you have the issue of the things that were bad for her are very whitewashed, and we don't actually really see her in any real trouble. Yeah. I mean. Am I forgetting anything? But I mean, there's nothing.
Well, that's the thing. I was gonna say, like, I feel like a lot of people could rebuttal to me about saying like one really bad thing happened to her by saying, well, she's been poor this whole time. But they've never really shown me that. Aside from a leaky roof and a ferret who's a joke, they never. She has a nice big room. Her room is as big as my room.
It looks pretty nice.
Yeah, like yes, that like it has like it's in a bad neighborhood, but like they don't really show. Well, the way they show that is what about the nice culture that's around you, like.
Oh, there's some Spanish coming from outside the window. It must be a bad neighborhood, right?
Yeah. I mean, but I don't want to solely focus on the negative, because I do think that there was good stuff here, and I actually really liked the whole play they put on with the Ghost of Christmas Past and the Christmas Carol idea.
That was interesting, too, because it came around the middle, and I guess you could say it kept going.
Yeah.
But the way that it kept going was like, you would forget that was what was happening.
Yeah.
And then suddenly be reminded, oh yeah, this is some sort of Riley crazy scheme.
And well, that reminds me that, I mean, a big part of why this episode reminded me of Great Lady is it was an episode with a lot of really good ideas that I was really interested in, but so many things were happening that, you're right, that I got totally sidetracked from this is an episode about Maya, where suddenly we're having a super intense thing about Farkle that I like and thought was interesting, but could have been the entire episode and would have felt something new. And so that was interesting. And then we had the whole other plot of like the friends not really knowing each other that well, and Zay and Smack and all that stuff, which I also thought was
every single gift, though, becomes more and more hard to justify in a real sense.
So, I mean, let's talk a little bit more about Maya, and then we'll switch back. But
Farkle.
yeah, but as far as so I will say I think that watching Topanga and Corey. I think all 4 people when they're in the play were funny. Like I thought even Ava and Augie were pretty good.
I was pleasantly surprised with the dynamics of those characters in that setting, especially with Topanga and Ava.
Yeah.
That being said, the whole sugar high thing was a real killer.
Yeah.
I mean, the theremin sounds. I mean, they just seemed like they were really trying to hit their quota for annoying sounds this episode, which is unfortunate that they feel like they need to do that. I mean, you can say what you felt about the theremin thing.
Well, that's the thing. I think the introduction of that idea, and the first time he did it, I didn't have a huge issue with it because I actually thought it was an interesting addition to Smackle's character, which seems like it fits in her character, but adds another layer of quirkiness, which I thought was fun, and also added a layer to their relationship that he knows that about her and all that stuff.
Right.
And then even Zay was like, "Oh, of course she'd like that." Like I thought was kind of nice. But then they kept doing that over and over again, and the actual I like the idea and like the character moment. I did not like the joke, and they kept hammering the joke home.
I mean, the joke it wasn't really even a joke. It was just
a noise.
Yeah.
And you're right that right after so the first scene with Ava and Augie, I thought
it was going okay.
It was going okay. Like I thought the back and forth with the Gift of Magi was actually kind of interesting, and then they start screaming again, and then we have the sugar high thing, and I'm like, this isn't needed. Like I don't like.
It's in their contracts, man. It's in their contracts. Must scream this loud for this duration in every episode.
I will say, I thought it was really fun seeing Augie as Sean. I thought it was funny. I think it makes...
It was pretty funny to see his hair straightened.
Yeah. I thought the whole thing of Ava as Maya was kind of nice because of the parallel they drew at the beginning of the season, too. And then I agree with you. I thought Danielle was really solid in this episode.
She was surprisingly charming as a fake kitty. And I enjoyed that.
I will say, I think that this is her best episode for comedy. Like, we have her monster as maybe her best drama, whatever. But for me, this is one of her better episodes for comedy.
I would say this episode included a very good moment of uninterrupted comedy for her.
Yeah.
I don't know that it was the highest point of comedy she delivered, but I think that there was a long stretch of good comedy that she performed.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'll say this. That I've really struggled with Danielle, and I think that there have been better comedic moments involving Topanga on the show. Yeah. But for me, this was one of the few episodes where all the way through, I felt that Danielle was Topanga.
Right.
And not even just being like, oh, Boy Meets World, Boy Meets World. More being like, I felt like he was in character, and I believed that character.
And what was great is, it wasn't about her.
Yeah.
It wasn't about her, but she played a good part in it, and just, it was charming and funny.
Yeah.
And it was fun.
Yeah. All right, so do we want to talk about the whole, let's talk about Riley for a little bit, maybe. Do we want to use Riley to springboard into the Farkle thing?
Where do we start?
So, Riley is a tough character.
Again, I love Rowan.
Yeah.
She does a great job. Riley as a character is fun. Yeah. But every time you sit down and think about what's happening, the character of Riley is a psychopathic, manipulative person.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I enjoy Riley in this episode. Yeah. Like, legitimately, I do. I thought the whole thing, the butterfly thing, like, that was all, like, that was fun.
Oh, the joke about I used to have butterflies, but then that was probably in my top 10 of the entire series jokes.
Wow, jeez.
I really
wouldn't go that far.
No, I like it. Yeah. I mean that's like perfect one-liner territory. Yeah.
I mean, I thought that Riley. Here's the thing. This episode on an island, I thought Riley, yes, she was imperfect, but I was able to be like, she's an imperfect person. I still find her charismatic and enjoy her presence on this episode. The problem is that we have this buildup of controlling, and even more than controlling is reinforcing that with a lesson over and over and over. Like, this is the season. Tis the season.
Tis the season for a Riley. Let's think of a good alliteration. So not like a Riley rampage, but like.
It was just.
Tis the season for Riley Town.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's the same thing. It's the hole. It's the balloons. It's all of you don't want to do Secret Santa.
Big gestures, with some sort of symbolic hammer home.
Yeah. And all of you don't want to do Secret Santa, but I'm gonna make you do it anyway. And then here's the thing. It's upsetting because it also takes away from the good moments where like I like the tag, I like the connection with Augie and her in that scene, and I like that yes she actually was sacrificing and that connects with the gift of the Magi. I thought that was nice, and that it actually makes a lot of sense that she gave up her time with Maya.
The sentiment also just of the sort of like the gift that Katie gave of the what was it, the permit to go to the right school that she could actually be with Riley. Was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a little understated, but I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I think that what made it more confusing was just how much was going on overall on this episode.
Yeah. But I mean, but about that tag, so like I think that tag is really a nice idea. The problem is that when you act like Riley was perfect throughout the entirety of the episode, then it kind of it takes away the actual good stuff.
What the episode wants you to feel.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing questioning her regency at all.
Yeah. So let's get into the more intense thing of her potentially overstepping her bounds here with Farkle.
Yeah. So beyond just like, hey guys, we're doing this, just do it.
Yeah.
The menorah. And I would like to preface by saying I really loved the performance of the interaction between Riley and Farkle here. And I think it was well delivered and everything was great. And there were a lot of interesting ideas in that moment that made me think and are great for discussion.
Yeah.
And it's a discussion that unfortunately I think is going to go on more than the scope of this video, but we can always revisit it.
Yeah. Quickly.
Yeah.
I think we should appreciate the fact that they actually did continue something from Great Lady. Because I think we said, and then you'll never hear about him being Jewish ever again. And so, kudos on that. I thought that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what your actual issue...
I feel like when you have Riley just be right, she has this thing so that at the beginning it sort of seems like she's shaming Farkle for not actively embracing a newfound heritage and adopting it as a big part of his self-identity. And Riley then kind of explains that away and makes this whole kind of heartwarming thing, which I like parts of, but in the end, she's just right, and I'm still kind of stuck with this taste in my mouth, which is still kind of like, if I was Farkle, I would still feel the way that he felt at the beginning. And obviously there's a middle point to be reached, but I'm leaning more towards that.
Well, I mean, I feel like if I was Farkle, I might, especially after a speech, I might be able to go, her heart was in the right place. I get that she wants to do the right thing. It still bothers me, and she needs to understand that, but I'm not, like, furious.
Not mad, just disappointed.
Yeah, like, I think it's a very complicated thing, and I think
it's great. The fact that it's a complicated thing is great.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a minute part of this episode, even though it is a rather outstanding one.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So there's the Farkle heart of this, right? But then the
Farkle heart.
Yes. The whole idea...
Whoa. Are you shipping some things?
No. The whole idea of this thing where they all get each other bad gifts or whatever, or don't understand each other, and it causes... Like, that is the beginning of a really interesting episode, I feel.
And but it comes at the end.
And even it comes like...
Middle-ish end.
Middle-ish end. And... It really smacks to me of the war in Boy Meets World, like setting up this thing of we're all a group, but are we really a group, or we just happen to be hanging out?
There's a divide that's going to happen.
Yeah, and then we have two parts, and we're going to find a way to remeld, and it's going to cause actual problems for a significant period of time.
Right, and then those issues are going to be important to realizing things, and then we come together with a greater understanding.
And that's the thing, like, I think that the beginning here is, first of all, I think the beginning is kind of, like, honestly perfect.
The beginning of this.
Yeah, the beginning of this. I think that him opening up the menorah and saying, why are you pushing me? Are you saying that I shouldn't be celebrating Christmas anymore? I thought that was really interesting and makes sense for her character and for his character. I think that Zay getting the etiquette book, I thought made a lot of sense, and also could make some sense why they might be upset about it. Yeah. Maya being upset about, like, all of that, all of those presents seemed like a great start to something.
Hey. Happy Holid.
And I won't say that I think the ending was, like, straight up bad. It was just so quick. It was just suddenly fixed the next scene.
Oh yeah.
And
with such decisive morality too.
Yeah, and so let's talk a little more about the Farkle thing. So she in her mind, she's like, I learned this is a thing about you. I learned about it. I thought you'd want to embrace your heritage and that you should accept all parts of yourself. And there's something inherently like there's a kindness there and a kind intent of saying like I think that you get something out of this. But it's also kind of the same intent of being like I'm religious and I think religion would really help you grow as a person. It would make you more fulfilled. So I'm going to give you a Bible, even though we've talked before and you said that you weren't religious.
Yeah, there's a heavy dose of ignorance here, and I think you used the word like a grandma.
I use the word.
Yeah. Like it's kind of like a grandma who's like doesn't understand. He's like trying to help, and
yeah, it means well. Means well, like and I understand why Riley would believe that it's important to embrace all parts of yourself and to learn about yourself because that was the whole message of that episode. Yeah. But it is if he doesn't feel ready for that, if he I don't know.
I mean, what it really comes down to is you have the tier of so it's a religious holiday, and so she's suddenly saying only to Farkle you can see it both ways, and because you happen to be Jewish, or happen to have Jewish heritage that you just found out about, should understand this religious holiday and these religious traditions because of this heritage.
Yeah.
Which culturally speaking, he is not culturally that. He hasn't been brought up as that. This is a completely foreign thing to him. And there's that sort of element of shaming him for not immediately embracing this religious thing, which is then obviously is a complicated cultural thing because there's so much wrapped up into that.
Yeah, there's religion and culture both within Hanukkah, just like with Christmas. And it is, look, it's complicated because clearly she's not trying to shame him. Yeah. And so, like, I think that this scene, honestly, for me, mostly works because I think from his perspective, he saw it and he said, "Are you saying I shouldn't be here? Are you trying to make me Jewish?" And she was saying, "No, I think that you should be both, and I think I thought of this as a positive thing of embracing your entirety." And he's like, "Okay, you didn't mean anything bad by it."
I think the whole like, does that mean I can't celebrate Christmas thing? That's one tier.
Yeah.
Then like that's an okay thing to get over. Yeah. But then the second tier is. Then she's kind of saying, I, as Riley, have made the decision about what you need to identify as. Despite what you care about, what your practical culture is, what you actually are invested in as in your own personal culture is not important. I've decided that your sort of, I'm going to say arbitrary heritage, because heritage is arbitrary. I mean, that is just, it's not something you choose. It's something that is placed on you. So you are being shamed for not embracing this.
Yeah, but so are you because she is in no way trying to shame him. So
no, I'm not saying she's trying to, but there's so much implied in.
You should do this.
You should like this is an enriching thing. Yeah. Like it's like the Bible thing you're saying. Like I believe these things, and you need this because I believe this is going to help you.
Well, so the other thing is that there's a lot of things unsaid between these episodes where. Between these episodes, is he showing signs of, I want to embrace this, but I'm uncomfortable with it, and she's trying to ease him into it or something? Right. Or is he showing signs of, I don't want to deal with this upsets me, and that's why he's saying, are you pushing me? Yeah. There's a lot of implied things in subtext.
And that's the interesting part, is that it does somehow, behind the scenes, meet somewhere in the middle, because I don't think it is entirely that. I think it is a lot of what she says, some of it must be true.
Yeah.
But even if it is it her place, even if it's not to push him, is it even her place to present such a symbolic gesture, especially in a public forum?
Well, in the show like this, the answer would be totally yes, because they're friends.
Grab your balloons and...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's complicated. I actually think it's kind of hilarious how much this is a parallel to New Year's with flipped. Right. It's completely, one person, Riley felt uncomfortable about talking about Lucas. She doesn't want to do it. She doesn't want to do it. Farkle decides, this is what's right. I will choose for you and never be punished in any way or learn any lesson about how I shouldn't have done that.
And it is a lot like that.
Yeah, it's very similar.
And I think it's interesting when you bring that up because I feel like a lot of people, and I want to get some feedback here, I feel like a lot of people who might feel one way about one of those gestures might not apply the same logic, for lack of a better terminology, to both to get the same outcome. I feel like there are people who might side more with Riley here,
Yeah.
but then be angry at Farkle just because you're supposed to feel pride for where you come from. But at the same time, it's the same thing. It's like I've made this decision about what I think is right, and I'm applying it to you, and I'm basically saying, you know, what makes you happy or what makes you comfortable is wrong, because I know this is more enriching for you.
Well, and they're both very personal things, and also, interesting enough, they both are, I'm going to do this in a public forum.
Right. And it's so symbolic.
Yeah.
It's this big gesture.
Yeah, it's not even like she took him aside and said, you know, I don't know if you're ready for this, but, like, if you are, I thought you might enjoy this, and I think that there's a lot there.
Was it
like,
Ski Lodge 2 that said it's not the big gestures? It's
no, that was Telltale Tot. Yeah, that was in the...
What am I... There's something from one of the ski lodges that was...
There was a...
Something about communication.
Yeah, communication.
It's not about the big gestures, the big symbolic gestures, it's about the little...
That specific line is from Telltale Tot. That's the message of Telltale Tot.
Okay.
But there is... That Ski Lodge 2 was all about communication and how that's...
I remember there's some line from that has something about that. But it's always been the opposite of everything that we've done.
I mean, I think... That's the thing. I think this is a complicated thing. I can understand people having very different views than us on this, and I think that there is something powerful and interesting in it.
I am deeply interested in the scene. I am very interested in the scene, and I like a lot of it. I have to turn off a certain amount of need to integrate myself into what's happening and think about it.
I would go so
completely far, I like this.
I would go so far as to say I think this is probably the most interesting thing that's happened all season. Like, in my opinion, that this is the most...
It's certainly the most interesting seed.
Yeah, as far as... It's the most... Like, yes, I do think that her monster had good drama, but it was also just, like, normal life, whatever. And I do think that Great Lady had some interesting ideas, but they were also, in a lot of ways, like...
A lot of finality to it.
Well, but also, like, it didn't feel that fresh or that visceral to me.
And a lot of it was like, hey kid, America's great.
Yeah. I mean, again, the visceral thing, I understand other people might feel differently, but I don't know if it was Corey's performance or what, but, like, I didn't, like, Farkle being upset about that did not hit me anywhere near as much as, like, Maya and Forgiveness or Riley and Riley Town or, you know.
Now, in contrast, I think this is perfect.
Yeah, I think Corey did a very good job here, and I did feel this. I thought that this was a moment with power in the air.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is so... I mean, this is perfect because it is cutting, but it's not overdone. They use silence and dialogue in a well-balanced way. And I can really appreciate sort of the complicated dynamics involved in this scene.
Also, I mean, I hate to bring it up because everybody's ridiculous. Yeah. But, I mean, there is something to be said about the Ryarkle thing going on here. Not to say that I want that, but as far as, like, Lucas isn't in this episode, and he's, like... not really missed that much in my estimation.
And nobody gets Riley a gift.
Yeah, no one gets Riley a gift. We don't see what Maya gets Lucas. And it is like that their interaction there, even though I don't particularly like that coupling, that's much more interesting than anything that's ever happened with Lucas and Riley.
It's more interesting, but I personally, from what I would expect is more objective as a stance, do not see that as a romantic gesture.
Yeah.
It just is one of these convoluted friendship things.
Yeah.
That being said, speaking of weird shipping
I knew
things,
you were gonna say that, yeah.
Zay and the reveal of like, oh, I wrote this for you in this book. If you open and look to the page, that to me was like, so we began with this, and we like went around in a circle, and the explanation for each gift got less and less believable. And when we got to Zay, I just really felt like when Zay was explaining the book, that was weirdly shippy.
Yeah.
And I don't see that as a platonic. I mean, that was weirdly shippy.
This is what I think is really, really... I mean, like, and that, on some ways, I think that's kind of sad that you feel that way. Like, I don't blame you, but like...
The type of gesture that it is. I mean, it's not like the sentiments are not, like, non-friend-ish.
Yeah.
It's just, like, the symbolism of... I've crossed out these things in the etiquette book and wrote down what I like about what makes you you.
Yeah.
It's so, like, rom-com-y.
Yeah,
and it's
really
like, you know
is,
what I mean? Like, this could be... I don't know.
Well, I do want to talk about the larger idea here of every gift seems bad at first, but
carries a terrible curse.
But the intention behind it makes it okay. Mm-hmm. Which I will say, especially for a Christmas episode, I actually kind of I like that quite a bit. I do agree with you that it and I like a little bit of cheese, and so some of it I did think worked. I think once we got to Maya, it was a step too far for me. The etiquette thing, yes, I agree, was a little shitty, but it wasn't too bad for me. I actually really like the Catan thing, with them saying we realized we didn't know you that much. We want to get to know you, and the joke of it takes forever to play, and
I like that joke.
Yeah.
I just think that the vehicle for it could have been. I don't know. I didn't quite get the vehicle for that. Just same thing as I don't quite get the vehicle of a clock.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I love the joke about time. You've learned that time can fix a lot of things.
Yeah.
Time to return the favor. I thought that was a very clever line.
I like that.
I just don't know that in the context.
Well, it felt. Here's the thing: it's one of those things that feels unearned because when has Smackle and Maya ever really interacted?
Right. Yeah.
And where I feel like if Corey gave her the clock and said that the exact line, I would have been like, yeah, that's a Corey thing to do.
Right.
Or even Topanga or something.
I don't know Topanga.
Yeah, but certainly it's a Corey thing to do.
Definitely.
Smackle, it felt. I mean, maybe people can remind me of episodes where Smackle's been like this philosophical, like, you know, metaphorical, symbolic gesture person.
Well,
but that doesn't feel like her to me.
When she's not hitting on Lucas is when her mind really gets going. So.
Well, let's talk about Smackle, because we talked a little bit about her when we were watching it. And what do we feel... First of all, you were a little confused about why the etiquette book would be offensive.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay, I thought you were
I was joking.
Oh, okay.
I was joking because she is terrible.
Oh, okay.
And what that really led me into is every time we have Smackle and... she's funny because she's awkward.
Yeah.
I just kind of have to stop and check myself and think about. So when they do hard line in the sand, canon that she's on the autistic spectrum.
Yeah.
I just have to think about how much they're exploiting that alone for humor. And Dan, you can give your example that you brought up before.
Well, I mean, okay, so there's a few things here. One, I do think no matter what, it's a great thing that this character exists. I think that the actress does a great job with her. She's a really interesting character. To exist, and I think that a lot of people take a lot of positivity from her existing on the show, but I still think, to me, she's a very Girl Meets World thing, right? She's taking she's taking a Girl Meets World like lesson thing and formed into a character of really good attempt, really good idea here, but there's a flaw to your
way to hustle out there.
Yeah, there's a flaw here where I don't understand why then the character is... The whole episode is about not living under a label. I feel like over her head the entire time should be, you know, socially awkward, having symptoms here, and that is all of her humor, that is most of her character, because they have not revisited this in a dramatic way.
And I will say, with the exception of the Lucas flirting, I think the way I take it is, those are my favorite Smackle moments.
But I would even say that the Lucas things are... the way I've interpreted the Lucas things, and again, in general, I agree with you the checking yourself thing, because in general, I think CC is really funny doing this stuff.
Right.
She's funny.
But once they label it as something...
but I think the Lucas stuff is supposed to be part of it too. That it's supposed
I can see how it's wrapped up in it, but for me, it's so unique and it becomes its own thing.
Yeah.
I think it transcends it enough and it becomes more about her.
Yeah.
As opposed to about her condition.
Yeah. Well, so I didn't actually answer you about my example is if we had a character who came in and was blind, it would be great to have a blind character on the show, and that's very unique. And seeing their struggles for an episode and having it be about that. But then if after that episode the character was around all the time, bumping in the walls and couldn't do this and couldn't do that and fell over, and that was the majority of their comedy, that would be really reductive and offensive.
Because they become just archetypes of sort of this vaudeville attitude, you know.
And again, I don't even think that you have to completely strike that out of the character. You know, like, I think if once in a while they did something like that, or they played up their own, like they made fun of themselves for it or something.
I mean, the most effective comedy is when you have a solid baseline, but then you steer into these things as needed, but don't rely on
Yeah.
the symbol of the character to just become the character.
Well, that's the thing is, I actually think it's too bad in some ways that it feels like the Lucas thing is supposed to be tied in with it, because if they instead were like, okay, we have this autistic character, but we're gonna make all of her humor about her like liking this boy that she shouldn't like.
Yeah.
And then it's not about her being autistic, it's about this. Which would work a lot better if she wasn't with Farkle. Like, it would be like the equivalent of...
I don't know about that, but...
Well, to me, it's like, if you... You know how they have the whole... I don't like this trope in general, but the trope of, like, Lily and How I Met Your Mother of liking Robin a lot, right?
Yeah.
If you gave, like, Smackle a thing like that, and, like, that had nothing to do with her autism, and, like, that was one of her main comedic beats... And then she also was autistic. Like,
to me, it is closer to that for me.
Yeah.
Because I just see her as this weird flirt who she knows exactly what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I think that the character knows what she's doing when she's flirting with Lucas.
See, I think the complicated thing with that is that if you're right, then isn't she kind of a dick to Farkle?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's fine.
You think that's fine? Because that's the thing. A big debate has been there are a lot of shippers who are, you're like, oh, Farkle should be with Riley because Smackle treats him terribly, and then a lot of other people are like, that's really offensive. She can't help herself. She's thinking thoughts that all people would think, but she's saying them because she can't help herself.
So tier A, they're teenagers.
Yeah.
So it's okay if they're not always great to each other.
Yeah.
Tier B, it's a comedy. One-liners exist both in and out of canon at the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
And so with those combined, it's okay that when she does that, she's being a little bit of a jerk, but I mean, I think that the spirit of the comedy overtakes that.
Yeah. Fair point. Okay, so what is there anything else?
I don't know, we've been looking back here a lot as if there's some
what else
secret
is in
information
inside the episode.
I bet there's some weird Easter eggs in here.
Okay, so we talked about Zay, we talked about Smackle. I feel like we hit most of the points. Do we want to talk any more about Maya's overall arc? Assuming that this is basically the end-ish.
Well, the big one is no Sean. I mean, for starters, an episode that has a lot to do with Sean, Sean was Augie. But,
what can they do if Ryder doesn't want to be there?
And that's the biggest thing. Is what can they do?
Well,
not write it Sean-centric.
What they could do is not make every single Maya plot be about this stuff. You don't need Sean for her to meet her step-siblings. You don't need Sean for her to have a bad day at school and struggle with her studies or something.
And I think that is just a fundamental problem is they said, we know Ryder's not going to be on a lot.
Yeah.
Let's get him hitched.
Yeah.
And I think that was just...
And basically become the father figure of basically the main character. And then not... that's the whole problem is that this is, them getting married is the biggest thing that's ever happened on the series. And then there's been no fallout of how does that affect her?
The biggest long-term payoff thing, certainly.
Yeah, but I would say, in my opinion, it's the biggest thing. Because her drama, her drama of being abandoned is the core of the show. That is the biggest, most ongoing... pain and drama of the show.
Okay.
And so this is her, a character who's felt abandoned and unwanted her entire life, hoping and praying and learning to have hope for a family that loves her.
And by that you mean pretending to be her friend.
Yes. And then getting everything she ever wanted. Not everything because her dad didn't come back, but you know what I mean? Getting...
Well, does she want that?
Yeah, I don't know. But my point, but getting, her heart's desire, and then not seeing how that impacts the character, and then acting like the character would not be changed by that.
And, she isn't changed by that.
And that is...
Not at the beginning of any episode, by the way, so...
So, it's very frustrating, and that's why I think that even if you were gonna have Sean... become her dad, you have to end the series that way. You can't have the series keep going after that. And I still don't understand why you didn't rearrange this and have Idu cut out the one line from Hollyworld where they mention that Sean's married to her and slightly change the dialogue here and have Idu be after this episode. Have it be that she's dating Sean and they're still worried about, but they're not fully married yet. And she's worried about impressing Sean
just half married.
Yeah, they're living together or whatever, they're dating. You know what I mean? I should have been the episode right before the finale, I think. And there's no reason not to, because nothing has come from it since.
And I don't know. To me, if there was a good reason not to do that, it's because they were trying to steer away from Maya being the main character.
Yeah.
And if that was the reasoning, I can see why they changed the things around. But the problem is, what we get instead of that is just a lot of confusing things.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I'm guessing the answer is more logistical, and it was, this is when Ryder was available, blah blah blah. But and that's
why do you have to air it then?
Yeah, why can't you film it and hold it? It seems weird to me. I don't get it. But these are our thoughts. They were plentiful. Let us know what you guys think. We're gonna do a big holiday special. Probably maybe a video, maybe audio. I don't know. So send in your emails, gmwpodcast@gmail.com. Leave comments below. Thoughts about this episode. We're gonna come back and talk about it with Caitlin more in a couple weeks and have some holiday fun. And please follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter @GMWPodcast. And please be kind to the people around you. Yeah. All right. Dream.
Try.
Do good.
Plus dismissed. That is the first time in a while we used that on the video.
Yeah, I know. 40 minutes.